The Florida A&M Rattlers are 3-11, but don't let that record fool you. Our Sunshine State opponents are coming off the season with a 25-7 record, a SWAC title, and an NCAA tournament appearance, as fifth-year head coach Kokon Yilmaz has his team firing on all cylinders coming into conference play. I am not alone at the broadcasting desk tonight. I am joined by former Division I player and coach Taylor Pritchett. Taylor, it has been a long time, almost a full calendar year, since Bethune-Cookman has played a home game. Walk me through some of the emotions of finally coming to play in your home gymnasium after so long. And you talked about the low ceiling. That is one thing that is different about volleyball. The environment, to a certain extent, is in play, whether it's a high ceiling, low ceiling. You've got a score clock up in the middle, as some Division I venues have. We've got just about to start here the Rattlers in the white with green highlights, libero in black. It was a blackout more gymnasium campaign, so the hometown Wildcats are in black with white and with the white libero and the maroon and gold trim. We mentioned a couple of players to look out for, especially Alicia Callender, leader in assists on this Bethune-Cookman team, leader in service aces on this Bethune-Cookman team. What does a player like that bring to a team chemistry-wise?
Oh, I mean, it's incredible. So Alicia is really, really versatile. She not only sets for the team, that's her primary role, and she has this incredible serve you're looking at, but she can also swing. The fact that she can stay on the court all the way around and do all of the skills means that she can really be the glue that kind of holds everybody together and keeps everybody on the same page.
And Florida A&M decisively wins the first point. There is the reigning Southwestern Athletic Conference Player of the Year, Newcomer of the Year, All-SWAC First Team, AVCA Southeast Region Honorable Mention, Dominique Washington, the graduate transfer.
Yeah, the list of accolades goes on, but she is absolutely an awesome player.
Back the other way, off the block and down, and Bethune-Cookman is on the board. There is the Wildcats' number 16, Jasmine Moore. She leads the team in digs with 78, that time rising to finish the point. And she will immediately go to serve. As if this is your first time watching volleyball, you may be confused about how serving works, why some players are wearing a different colored jersey. As a nice solo block dug out underneath. That was Emerald Jacobs on the rejection. Drop shot kept alive by A&M. Pushed to the far side, back set off the net, and it will be an A&M point as they go ahead 2-1. Don't worry, we will explain all of those things to you in time. Let's start with the libero, because that is probably the biggest difference between volleyball and other sports. There's somebody out there wearing a different color shirt.
Exactly. That's always the first question, why is this player wearing another shirt? So the shirt is simple. She just needs to be able to be told from the rest of the players, because she actually has different rules. She cannot jump and touch the ball above the height of the net if she's in front of the 10-foot line. As long as she stays back, she's fine. But that means that she cannot be a hitter choice. So that libero also does not have to pay attention to the substitution. She can come in and out of the game almost as she pleases, but that'll let you really get her back there in the back row, cycling through and making sure that you're keeping your defense on lock, and especially your passing, because the first contact is where you really win the game. If you can control that first ball, and you're able to get it to those hitters to actually put it away for a point.
Libero, also sometimes called defensive specialist. Cross-court pass blocked at the point of attack by Bethune-Cookman. Second chance opportunity floated to the net. A wild swing, VCU out of service. They'll have to play it over the net calmly. There's a little drop shot, repelled by the libero for Florida A&M. That's Brooke Hudson. The rally continues, the longest one in the game thus far. Crowd wanted a double touch there, none given, and that one finds floor for Emerald Jacobs.
That's why you've got to keep playing through. A lot of times players will see a point where they think that it should have been called, it should have been stopped, and they'll want to ask the ref for the point rather than continuing to play. And you see it just in those little lapses in concentration that results in the last point.
You You saw Bethune-Cookman rising to the net in numbers. They are the leaders in the SWAC in blocks per set and total blocks, 2.2 per set to be precise. So we'll see them try and attack the net. And I think the stoppage in play here is for the reason we were talking about, right? Bethune-Cookman is arguing that should have been a double touch at the net.
Yes, I actually think it might not be Bethune-Cookman. I think that the ref may have wanted to speak with someone in the crowd. Because often you'll see the down ref, standing down on the floor. They're the one that the coach really gets to talk to. So you'll watch the head coaches actually walk up to him and be able to have a conversation if there's really some kind of contention with the call.
And volleyball has specific rules about what the light in the arena can be, what the temperature in the arena can be. It's very interesting.
Very much so. We try to control the environment as much as possible, in part to separate it from beach volleyball, where the environment is the game. So you've got the wind, you've got the sun, but as much as we can keep things kind of collected and constant in the gym, we definitely try to make that happen.
5-1 Florida A&M early on in this first set. Another block at the net by the Rattlers. That time Dominique Washington got up and blocked it. She's the team leader in kills, only has 16 blocks on the season coming into the game.
And that's actually something that you'll see with outside hitters, because they are blocking across the net from a right side attacker. So those tend to be one of your least set positions, so they just get less opportunities.
6-1, VCU on the attack, floated into the middle. Opportunity here for the back set, off the fingertips of Dallas out in front. Off the block and down. That one will be called. Bethune-Cookman picks up their second point. An authoritative finish by Jaden Newman.
Florida A&M's libero has twice already tried to send the ball over deep into that back corner on a first touch, because she thinks that Bethune-Cookman has all crashed up to the net and they're not going to be able to read and react to that point that she sends over. She's trying to get the kills herself.
In between the blockers and down for a point. That's Isis Williams, a native of Louisville, Texas, a redshirt junior. She'll get up there at the net. She had 5 blocks in the Rattlers' win over Jackson State in the SWAC championship game last year, and led the team in blocks a season ago with 18 solo and 32 assists. Right next to the wire, that's off the block but out of bounds, so Bethune-Cookman will grab the point. And it doesn't matter who gets the last, or it doesn't matter who gets the last touch, but it doesn't matter if it's blocked or not, as long as it goes out of bounds.
Yeah, so in that case, essentially, whoever touches it last is who then determines whether it goes in or out. So the blocker, Florida A&M's blocker, was the last person to touch that ball. Since it fell out at that point, that was the point.
Collender couldn't quite keep that on the Florida A&M side of the net. 8-3 Rattlers here early on. Remember, we play best of 5, first to 3. If we get to a fifth, sets are to 25, but if we get to a fifth set, it will be to 15. That one tipped off the net, awkward play, and it lands out of bounds. A nice little improvisation from Madison Coates just off the bench. They're from nearby Oviedo, Florida, from Haggerty High School. Did not find the floor in bounds, however. Jacob serves for the Rattlers. Kept alive barely and over the net. Free play for A&M. Tall set, almost touches the ceiling. Dropped and down. A little bit of miscommunication there on the Rattlers sideline between Irem Uchar and the libero. And talk a little bit, Taylor, how important is on-court communication in this game? Because it seems like it's the most important thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if we talk about how random the game of volleyball is, it's not like, basketball, football, where you can hold on to the ball for a little while. You have 1 second to make a touch and go. So everybody has to be on the same page with where that touch is going, who's taking it, and what has to happen next. If that falls apart, then you end up with, a campfire around a ball that ends up hitting the court.
It's a good description, a campfire. I never thought of it that way. Another powerful kill attempt is off the block and out, so A&M picks up the point. That one is down just in front of Dominique Washington, and it's a 5-point Rattler lead. As we just see Aaliyah Dallas come back into the game. Talk about the substitution rules.
So this is where we looked at the libero and the middle. So the libero, Adriana, who's serving right now, actually was substituted in for Aaliyah when Aaliyah went into the back row. However, now that that position has rotated into the front, Aaliyah can come back in, and Adriana, the libero, can go back and become the new server. And they actually didn't have to use up a substitution for any of that.
Hammered off the block and out of bounds. Bethune-Cookman picks up their second straight point. They trail by 4, 10-6 in the first set. A little bit of a miscommunication on the Rattlers sideline. Back set, and that one spins out of bounds. So Bethune-Cookman picks it up, and the A&M bench is confused. You see head coach Gökhan Yilmaz, the native of Istanbul, Turkey, and former professional player, going over to chat with the down official.
So this is because the line judge actually said that it was in. The line judge would have called that a block for Florida A&M, but the up ref ended up overruling him and calling that out from his own vantage point. So the up ref does have the final say, but the coach is, saying that, hey, your line judge, who was supposed to be the one making that call, called something else. So what's going on?
And as somebody who referees soccer and we have a similar relationship between line judge and center referee, I know that kind of confusion or apparent miscommunication confuses coaches all the time.
Right. And of course, you never want to admit that you lost a point. So
No.
in that case, you're always arguing, just trying to see if you can get that 3 more points down the road.
Nice mid-air adjustment by Bethune-Cookman as they batted back the drop shot attempt, and then it was touched twice in a row by Brooklyn Watts, and that's a point for BCU. They have 4 straight. Tipped off and over, and just like in tennis, that will count. BCU with 5 straight, and the gap is just 1.
And this is where Urin Luchar should have been looking and watching that serve come over. It fell right in front of her face. If she was actually paying attention to the serve that's coming her way, she would have been able to step in and make that play.
To the back row it goes. Luchar to set it up for the power hit of Watts. Nicely dug out by Bethune-Cookman.
There's that ceiling coming into play.
Quick into the net, and just a little low on that setup from Uchar, and Jones couldn't find the height to finish it, and it's a tie ball game. We've seen a couple of errors from the A&M side in the last few minutes that have allowed BCU to level this contest. Marrero serves again, behind her head, touched and kept alive in the back row for BCU. Cookman out of system, so this will be a free play for the Rattlers. Another touch off the block. This time BCU in system. Off the fingertips of Ushar. And down and kept alive barely on the far sideline. Over it goes. Ushar, long cross-court set and finally powered down by Brooklyn Watts, the transfer from Murray State. Finally, the 6-point run for BCU is broken as FAMU will serve behind her head. Nice one-handed save by Hudson. Watts puts it over, and it's going to be slowly into the back row. A little miscommunication, but the Rattlers do dig it out, and off of Marrero and into the back wall, and it's a 2-point swing for Florida A&M. So something I've always wondered watching volleyball is who has the advantage at any particular point, the serving team or the receiving team?
Great question. It is actually almost always the receiving team. So we take a look at what we call side out usage. So anytime you win a point when you're receiving, you're siding out. So your side out percentage, a good side out percentage for a team is 70%. So 70% of the balls you pass, you win. But a lot of times you're floating above 50. When you look at point scoring, which is when we're serving, those numbers are hovering more around 30 to 40% if you win.
To the back left corner it goes. Hudson the setup, backline kill attempt, dug out, and it goes right back to Williams, who powers it to the floor.
Those always feel great as a hitter when you those overpass kill. You get to go up and you usually put a hurt
was down on the floor watching warm-ups before the game, and I was surprised at how high these women get up off the ground to hit those kills.
Absolutely, it's incredible. I mean, and the height that women are starting to touch is even changing over the time that I've played. You know, back when I was playing, we're talking about touching 10 feet. It's a big deal. But now at this point, it's still a big deal. But I've heard, you know, there are players out there touching almost 11 feet, and when you're looking at the net is at 7'4" 1/4", they are way up there and have all kinds of room to get it.
Cross court it goes into the back row, diving attempts, but it's going to be I believe, a net touch violation that will give Florida A&M the point, and they have won 4 of the last 5.
Yep, absolutely. They called the right side blocker in the net. Anytime you touch that thing from up in the air, you're going to end up getting that call from the other ref.
This time Uchar to serve. Cross it goes off the libero into the ceiling, recovered by the Rattlers, off the net, and powered home.
And that was very much an insistent set, but run out of the back row, which is kind of crazy because you're used to having the 3 hitters across the front, but once you add another one out of the back row, and it's not just, you know, I'm in trouble and I need to chuck it up high to someone, that's actually an insistent set for them, so it really adds another wrinkle and another layer to their offense.
A little bit of moisture being wiped off the floor. Just like basketball, you don't want those feet to slip, especially when you're diving around and contorting your body to try and save a ball that's about to go in.
Happens all too often.
Uchar with her second straight service from Izmir, Turkey, and a transfer from Texas Christian. And down it goes. Bethune-Cookman rallies back with a point, and that's a little bit of a confusion tactic, right? You think it's going to be set to the far corner, but somebody in the middle comes up and then smashes it down.
Exactly. Her whole point, Aaliyah Dallas's whole job is to be in fast and be up, just be an option. Because the more that she's an option, the opposing blocker has to hang out there and see if she's going to get set, and that opens up avenues for the people out of the points, even if she doesn't get it.
Marrero with the impressive dig, but it could not be followed up by Jasmine Moore. And that'll go the way of the Rattlers. Florida A&M, they are 3-11 after non-conference play. All 3 of their wins came over a two-day span in Elon, North Carolina. They beat the Elon Phoenix, the North Carolina A&T Aggies, and the UNC Greensboro Spartans. And that is an emphatic block. Straight down it goes, and Aaliyah Dallas extends her blocking lead at the top of this team. Dallas, the redshirt junior. There are no actual seniors listed on the Bethune-Cookman roster, and that is something to look for. This is a team built for the future. The majority of the team is freshmen and sophomores. There's only a few juniors sprinkled in there, but everybody on this team has the potential to come back next season and be even better.
Absolutely, and that's really, really important for team chemistry and cohesion. I know that they're, you know, working on doing a lot of stuff from a system standpoint, because once you graduate from college, you've really got to implement the team system as opposed to just working on your own techniques. And so having the ability to train together even longer will make them better and better in the years to come.
And that'll be another net. Oh no, a lift. They called the lift. We were talking about this pregame. You said you went to a referees clinic earlier this year, and they one of the points of emphasis was to talk about the lifts and to watch for them.
Absolutely. So the referees this year want to make sure that they are getting a hold of the rule for a lift is that the ball must be caught and thrown. So that interpretation has gotten a little lax. So that's why the emphasis is being put back on lift. In that case, Alicia Callender, the setter, went up and tried to set it with one hand, which is much like a tip. But when you tip upwards, referees have a tendency to think that there was some catch and throw there. So it's a very fine line to walk.
All right. Bethune-Cookman calls a timeout. We'll take 30 seconds. We'll be right back. This is Bethune-Cookman Volleyball on the Cat Eye Network. Wildcat fans, the next Wildcat home game at Moore Gymnasium is homecoming weekend on Friday, November 4th, as they host the Hornets of Alabama State. That game is set to begin at 6 p.m. Make sure to come out and support your Wildcats, or you can watch it right here on the Cat Eye Network. Michael Trillo, Taylor Pritchett on commentary today as the Wildcats have their home opener against their rivals from Tallahassee, Florida A&M. It's currently 19-13, Florida A&M in this opening set, as the ball is played to Uchar, back behind her head, left hand kill off the block and out of bounds. That's Dominique Washington as she rotates into that left hitter spot.
Absolutely, and that's something that you really start to try to plan out. Look at where he's starting, what rotations, where he wants to line up on the court. Because you know that in general, we're going to get 2.5 times around the court in a single set. So if I can make sure that I have my best rotations coming up at the end of the match, I know that I'm going to be able to close out very well. And I think that that's probably what Gokan's doing with Dominique Washington, is trying to get her up there in the front row as often as he can.
Well, the end of the set is coming along rather quickly. It's 20-14. Remember, this was 11-11 at one point, and it has been all Florida A&M before and after the VCU timeout. Now 21-14. Serving for A&M is Emerald Jacobs, a native of Houston, Texas, a club ball player for Houston Skyline. Started 24 games her freshman year and 102 sets played for the Lady Rattlers.
So we actually just watched there 2 substitutions happen. This is a pretty common crossover into what's called a 6-2. So in this case, they actually, the setter, Uchar, had rotated into the front row. They actually substituted her out for a right side hitter, and then the right side just rotated back. They put a setter in for her. This makes sure that they have 3 hitters available in the front row all of the time, rather than having a setter up front and then having to go out.
Please forgive us, it is the first game of the season for the Cat Eye Network too. We're still working on a little bit of technical difficulties here. Cross court it goes, and that is down for a Florida A&M point. Dominique Washington with that signature pacey kill, and it's 22-15.
You know, you look at it a lot. Outside hitters especially, but all hitters really try to find a shot where they can send it deep into that corner, because the players, I mean, it's what we call a low percentage shot, you know, so it doesn't happen very often. Your system tends to give it up, but if you can hit it very, very consistently, you can win a whole lot of points with that.
23-15, just 2 points to go for the Rattlers to take the opening set. Tipped right at the net, blockered and down. And Florida A&M just moves 1 away. They have been ruthless to close out set number 1.
And that right there was the benefit of getting into that 6-2. So, you know, the setter sent it back to their right side hitter, who wouldn't have been there otherwise. And the middle, Kaytal Price for Bethune-Cookman, had to wait a second and was a little bit late getting out to that block. So once she's late getting out there, it opens up a big lane for that right side hitter to get her kill.
One more point for Bethune-Cookman to try and defend. Florida A&M 24-16 the lead. Cross it goes. Dug out by Coates. The libero takes it, and it dribbles over the net and down. And Florida A&M will take the first set by a score of 25-16. Remember, this game was 11-11 at one point after the Wildcats made a little bit of a run middle of the set. The Rattlers, after the timeout, scored 7 out of 8 points to take to the end of the set. We'll take about a 2.5-minute break as we end the first set. The teams will switch benches. We'll be right back. This is Bethune-Cookman Volleyball on the Cat Eye Network. Welcome back to more Gymnasium. Michael Truillo, Taylor Pritchett alongside me in commentary. The Florida A&M Rattlers lead the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats 1-0 as the Rattlers went on an 8-1 run after a timeout to close out set number 1. The teams have swapped benches, which is something unique to volleyball, but also we haven't seen that for the past couple of years due to COVID regulations. This is the first year that the NCAA has allowed bench switching once again in Division I play.
Exactly, and it's something that we indoor volleyball kind of took from beach volleyball. You would originally switch sides of the court because the sun might be shining or the wind or whatever, and we were actually able to transfer that into the indoor game because still, you know, sometimes schools will have a big set of windows on one side of the court, so the sun is still a factor, but it's really intended to make sure that, you know, things are as even as possible as you're going throughout the game.
And here we have the stage on one side, which can be a little bit distracting if you're looking across the court from it. I know some basketball players have told me that they've had some like free throw issues if they're facing that direction.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the perspective will throw things off for sure. It's the same, you know, like you mentioned, there are some arenas that have a super high ceiling and a scoreboard. That'll throw off your perspective vertically as well. So it's definitely interesting to try to play through the different environments that you get into.
Irem Uchar begins set number 2. Back row dig for Washington. Underneath it goes. Cookman on the attack. Off the block. One arm save in the back row from Washington again. Crank to the back. Two touches off the libero. Has to go over softly. Tried to be a little tricky there is A&M. BCU read it well. This time a spike between the blockers, right back over the net. BCU keeps it alive. Marrero taps over. Back again it goes, blocked and out. So the Rattlers take the first point, a very long first point of set number 2. I want to talk about Florida A&M coach Gökhan Yilmaz. He has been around a while. It's his 5th season at Florida A&M, but he is originally from Turkey. He coached professionally in Turkey for Eşeban Sports Club for 2 years in the 90s. Coached youth in Turkey for 6 years before finally making his way over to the States. This volleyball really is an international game.
Absolutely, absolutely. You start to see a lot of kind of trading between, especially, you know, clubs and teams in Europe with the United States. A lot of times, you know, actually, college players have a whole lot of opportunities to go overseas and play professionally. And so you'll see a lot of players, especially when, you know, they have really prolific careers, will end up going overseas to play because there's not really a set professional league here. But it's interesting that Gökhan is now, you know, the coach of A&M. He's followed, or I guess has been down much the same path that James Goodridge, the assistant coach for Bethune-Cookman, has been down because they were both at Florida State, both at Northwood University, both in the central North Carolina area, UNC Greensboro, UNC Charlotte. Never really at the same time, but it's kind of funny to see how, you know, paths tend to follow one another.
And it's a small world. All sports are a small world, and, you know,
Exactly.
and that is something that I've really noticed covering high school sports in this area for the past couple of years is volleyball is booming at the youth level.
Absolutely, and that's been a really, really big push, you know, especially there are really different states that are really starting to kind of grow their youth volleyball game, but it is, I think, the second most played sport in the world after soccer. And so there's really been a grassroots movement to kind of build up youth play, build up clubs, build up high schools, and really give a lot of young women and now growing more young men opportunities to get in and play this really cool sport at the collegiate level.
We were at Boone High School for a high school game earlier this year, and we were talking to the coach, and she said, well, I had more girls come out for volleyball than the football team had football players come out for tryouts. So that is an indication of the growth of the sport, especially in Central Florida.
Absolutely, and it's such a community, you know, it's, I obviously have a soft spot in my heart for it, but, you know, it's something that really, really requires team play. Like we were talking about earlier, it's so random that you can't really just have, you know, one single great player or two single great players because everyone has to touch the ball at some point. And so the community, you know, for these girls is awesome.
That was rejected by Jasmine Moore. Team leader in digs, has 17 blocks on the year. There's another one. She also leads BCU in kills with 111. But again, this BCU team is the best blocking team in the conference, at least through the non-conference slate.
And that's a really big deal because as you start to, really put up a solid block in front of teams, you'll end up making them a little bit gun shy. People will stop swinging, they'll start to tip more, they'll start to roll more, and those are the things that you really get to eat up with your back row and run those nice, pretty in-system plays.
Emerald Jacobs tries a cross court that does not find the legal inbounds, and BCU actually has recovered from a slow start to take a 5-3 lead behind the service of Madison Coates. Cross court it goes, tipped and down, and the run is stopped by the Rattlers. Madison Coates, we mentioned, from Oviedo. A couple of other Florida prospects on this Bethune-Cookman team. You have A.J. Simmons from Miami, who we have yet to see play today. And we have Victoria Samedi from Claremont. And that is actually it. There's only 3 Florida players on this roster.
It's kind of interesting that Victoria Samedi, she, is from Florida and ended up staying in Florida for her schooling. Her older sister, Stephanie, played at the University of Minnesota, so about as opposite the beautiful Florida weather as you can possibly get.
I have some friends from the Minnesota area, and every time they're like, you want to come visit? I'm like, when? December? No.
No,
I'd like
no,
to stay in
not
Florida,
in December.
please.
There's actually there's a convention every year for volleyball coaches where they can go and go to all kinds of classroom sessions. It's centered around the Final Four, but it was in Minneapolis, Minnesota one year, and incredibly cold.
That was another great block, that time by Kaital Price. She leads the conference in blocks per set, 1.18, and she got another one there, 7-4 Bethune-Cookman. Serving now for the Wildcats is Jacinta Williams, native of Simpsonville, South Carolina. Led the team in digs last year and was 6th in the SWAC in that category.
And Jacinta has a really interesting serve where she gets right up to the line, she sits there, she waits, and then as soon as the ref whistles, she's trying to send that thing over. It's used a lot to try to disrupt the flow of the other team because you want to sit there and get set up for a while. But it's actually really effective in kind of putting a wrench into their passing scheme.
And we've seen a lot of differing service styles, right? Some players jump and hit it, some players stand. But all that matters is you have to be either behind the line or in the air when you hit the ball.
Correct. You have to take off from behind the line. You can land in the court, but you have to take off from behind the line. But you'll watch coaches, and this is something that you have to kind of reassess every year, but you want to make sure that you have a variety of serves on your team. You want, like Adriana Marrero has a jump float where she gets to, come to the ball, get a little bit of height, a little bit of momentum, and really try to make that ball float a lot. Jaden Newman may pull out a jump topspin serve where she will actually hit it as though it's an attack, it's a hit. Or you could see, Jacinta's standing float up close to the line. They might back way up. So if you've got those kind of varieties of serves on your team, you give the passers different looks every time, and they have to constantly adjust.
Off the block and out of bounds as it's still a 2-point lead for Bethune-Cookman. Jasmine Moore with the finish that time. All SWAC second team a year ago. Led the team in kills and was second in digs. At one point had 19 kills in a match against Texas Southern. That ball hangs on the net and down. Whistle and a stoppage. And they're going to give the point to Bethune-Cookman. You talk about volleyball being random. How often do you see that?
Absolutely. Surprisingly more often than you would think, but those kind of plays start to get really tricky. They actually ended up calling the middle, the person who played it after it rolled off the top of the net, over the center line. And so that's really a safety thing. What the rule is if your hand or foot or any other body part crosses entirely over the line. So you can touch it, but you can't be all the way on the other side of the court. Because at that point, it's basically deemed that you're a trip hazard.
10-6 Bethune-Cookman in the second set. Florida A&M won the opening set, 25-16. In the conference opener for both of these teams, the home opener for Bethune-Cookman. A&M has already played 4 home games as a part of the A&M/ FSU tournament earlier in the season. They play Yale, Austin Peay, and my alma mater, James Madison, at Al Lawson Center.
And it's incredible looking at the setup of the SWAC conference schedule. There is, well, a lot of travel between these schools, but in order to combat that, I guess, they've got some marathon weekends. I mean, you know, 3 or 4 matches in a weekend where they're going out and really just working their tails off to try to get these conference wins and put themselves in a good position in the conference tournament, and then ultimately to go to the NCAA tournament.
And the way the SWAC accomplishes this is they'll have a bunch of teams gather in one location for a weekend or for 4 days, and then they'll just play matches the whole time through those 4 days. And they call them the SWAC pools,
Yep.
if you will. So the one that Bethune-Cookman is going to is in Huntsville, Alabama. They'll play Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Alcorn State, and Southern over the course of 4 days, the October 9th, 10th, and October 9th and 10th and 14th.
Yeah, those are, I mean, the toll that it takes on their bodies is incredible. They're going to have to be in great shape to make sure that they can fight through potentially 20 sets in, 4 days. That's a whole lot of work, and they've got to make sure that they're putting in the work ahead of time to be ready for that.
Moore unable to recover that kill attempt, and it is 10-7 Bethune-Cookman. Finally, A&M gets the serve back. It'll be Irem Uchar, the native of Turkey and the transfer from Texas Christian, the 2021 SWAC Setter of the Year. We have definitely seen why so far in this game. She's very accurate. Across it goes. Middle hitter over the top. Doesn't find the floor. Saved by Moore. And then set to the back corner. Down with authority for Florida A&M from Isis Williams.
And as you're watching, so we talked about the liberos earlier and how they have different rules, right? So you'll see them, if they're standing in front of the 10-foot line, they will actually bump set the ball instead of hand setting, because if they set the ball with their hands in front of the 10-foot line, the next person has to act as though they're a back row attacker. So they cannot jump and hit the ball above the height of the net if the libero uses their hands. It's basically the rules way of making sure that you can't have, your libero be your setter and get unlimited subs and put her wherever you want.
Bethune-Cookman gets that point as well as the block went out of bounds. 11-8 now. Jasmine Moore serving. Tough dig by her opposite number, Washington. And this is going to be a free play for Cookman. The libero Marrero. Across it goes. Whistle before the kill. Point for A&M.
And sometimes, so that was a really cleanly developing play. The libero took it, made a nice pass, and then you get a double out of the setter. And a lot of times that happens because the setter has so much time to think that they end up overthinking and second-guessing, and you end up with that, bobbled second touch.
BCU up 11-9, drop shot, recovered by Williams. Back across it goes. Marrero up, and what a ridiculous diving save by Hudson.
These liberos are going back and forth.
And A&M is able to play it back. Uchar digs it out. Cross court. Williams off the block. Tipped up, kept alive. Second hit in the back row. It'll have to be a back row kill attempt. And it goes into the net from from Moore. And it is 11-10 BCU as we're going to get a bench warning. Just like any other sport, the coaches sometimes get too far into it. They want to be on the floor themselves.
Absolutely. But, I mean, you kind of like to see that. I would personally much rather my coach be out and into it and really wanting to interact with the team instead of just kind of sitting back, chilling on the bench. Now, that's my preferred coaching style, but I think that really shows your investment and the fact that you are in this with the team.
Washington finds the seam in the Bethune-Cookman defense, ties the game at 11 here in set number 2. Marrero behind the head and out.
And you'll see Marrero, or the libero on either side, almost jumping in front of other players, because they've got the ability to stay in the back row the whole time. They're usually your best defensive player. They're usually your best passer. And so they often get the green light to kind of go out and while the system might say that the ball is somebody else's, they can go and actually take that and just be a very, very good volleyball player.
Finding the empty part of the floor is Emerald Jacobs. I have been impressed with her ability to guide the ball rather than just straight go for power at the top of her jump.
And a lot of times, you know, we talk about ball control, and you can get into a habit of thinking that that means your first contact is ball control because you're trying to control this thing that's coming at you. But your hitters need overhead ball control as well. If I can, you know, take this ball and put it where I want it to go on the court rather than swinging really hard and hoping that it hits ground, then I have a whole lot more control over what I get to do. That was an incredible serve by Aaliyah.
Aaliyah Dallas with the ace, her 8th of the season. That ball kind of looked almost like a knuckleball in baseball. It went and then it just dropped out of the air.
That's exactly what it is. That's that jump float serve that you really try to train the ones that look like they're going deep. They're coming fast off of her hand, and then they drop really, really suddenly. It's so difficult to pass.
Oh, that serve goes into the net. I see head basketball coach Reggie Theus in the building. He is here supporting Bethune-Cookman Volleyball.
There we go. Head basketball coach and athletic director?
Yes, indeed.
There we go.
We'll see his basketball Wildcats on the floor in just over a month. Can you believe it's almost basketball season?
It is almost basketball season. No, I can't. I can't.
That one was deflected off the block and found the out-of-bounds line, so it'll be BCU point. Tie game at 14 as we get more subs in for the Wildcats. Madison Coates returns. She replaces Nyara Hightower.
And this is part of the versatility that I was talking about earlier of Alicia Callender. So Madison Coates coming in for Nyara Hightower is actually a part of the 6-2 system that we mentioned earlier with Florida A&M, where they take the setter and the right side off the court and they put a new setter and right side in. But since Alicia can set and hit, she doesn't actually need that right side hitter to come in for her. She can set when she's in the back row and hit when she's in the front row.
Again, finding the floor where no defender is. 15-14 A&M here in this second set. This was about the score in that first set where the Rattlers went on that big run and was eventually able to close it out.
Exactly, and so we want to make sure that, you know, the focus stays
down it
on
goes.
that first contact.
Sorry, Taylor, that
okay.
was a seeing eye shot from the back row that found the far corner. Beautiful finish. I believe that was Madison Coates.
Sometimes, you know, there are those plays where you're trying to put it, you know, where you want it to go. Sometimes you just got to rely on luck.
And this is now 3 Rattler points in a row where it's just been finding the places where the defenders aren't. It's been down the middle. It's been, you know, to the left or right. It's, you know, a little drop shot over the blockers.
Yep. And this is something that we kind of mentioned earlier. So because Bethune-Cookman has been blocking so well, they actually, Florida A&M has stopped swinging as much. They're starting to send those off-speed shots where they take the block out of play, and then the backcourt has to prove that they're going to be able to pick it up.
Bethune-Cookman calls timeout, trying to stop the Rat. It is 17-15 Florida A&M. Rattlers trying to go up 2 sets to 0. This is Bethune-Cookman Volleyball on the Cat Eye Network. Stay tuned. Wildcat fans, come support your Wildcats on the gridiron as BCU football takes the field tomorrow at 2 p.m. as they host the Grambling State Tigers in a SWAC matchup. You can get your tickets today at Ticketmaster.com, but if you can't make it to the game, you can see everything live on ESPN+. Be sure to come out and support your Wildcats. 17-15 Florida A&M in the second set. It's 1-0 Rattlers. And again, a powerful swing. Cannot be contained by Jacinta Williams, and it's a 3-point A&M lead. Here's getting down low to make that dig is Williams. Cross court it goes, dropped down and unable to be corralled by Coates.
And this is where the Bethune-Cookman defense really has to start recognizing that Florida A&M is not swinging at them anymore. They're digging in, they're waiting for these big bombs, but you've just got to, take a look at the hitter and understand that I need to be ready to run, I need to be ready to move, and let's go pick this thing up.
Quick kill attempt by Price into the net and down, native of Robbinsdale, Minnesota, and a transfer from Dayton. Also a track and field athlete in the high school ranks, long jump, triple jump, and high jump. And she holds the record this season for the most blocks in a game in the conference. Had 8 against UC Riverside at a tournament out in Texas.
And Dominique Washington has a really good serve. As this thing's coming over, I'm watching it float feet side to side. So the passers back here have a really tough job trying to line themselves up and make sure that they're putting a good angle on it to send it to their setter.
That time, the Rattlers go with power, and Aja Jones finds hardwood.
And again, that's that good deep corner shot. Those are the most difficult spots on the court to defend. So if you as a hitter can develop something that sends it back into that corner all the time, you're going to be a very, very good hitter.
Back set, did it get down? No. Florida A&M 23-15. So just like in the first set, Taylor, after the timeout, it's all Rattlers, and it's 23-15. And we may see the exact same scoreline of set number 2 as we did in set number 1, which was 25-16.
And this is something that is really, really difficult to train. It's very difficult to manufacture because the Wildcats are jumping out to a start in each of these sets. They're really, trying to focus in and get off to a good start. And then at some point it just starts to get away from you. And there's really not a great way to replicate that in the training gym. And so they've got to make sure that even in these moments, even when it doesn't feel great because, you're down a little bit, you're still going, okay, how am I going to get out of this? How am I going to make this better? What am I going to do to win?
Well, they can't get out of it now. It's 25-15, and that's the set as Aja Jones applies the finishing touch. Adriana Marrero could not save it, and we will head to set number 3 with the visitors up by 2. We'll take a break and come back. This is Bethune-Cookman Volleyball on the Cat Eye Network. Make sure you are representing Bethune-Cookman University Athletics to the fullest. You can buy the latest BCU gear online at the Bethune-Cookman online store. Go to bcuathletics.com and then click on Shop to find the latest BCU clothing and apparel. That's bcuathletics.com. Click on Shop. A couple of football notes to get to as well. Florida Classic tickets are on sale. Don't miss out on the biggest HBC football game in the country. Head on over to Ticketmaster to secure your tickets today. Stay tuned to FloridaClassic.org and BCU Athletics. And also, come out to support your Wildcats on the biggest stage. Bethune-Cookman football takes over TIAA Bank Field in Jacksonville on October 15th as we host the Tigers of Jackson State. Once again, you can get your tickets at Ticketmaster.com. Welcome back to more gymnasium. We're about to start set number 3. The Florida A&M Rattlers with a 2-0 lead over the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats. I'm Michael Tavillo, Taylor Pritchard alongside me in commentary. And Taylor, during the break, we were looking at some statistics, and as they often say, statistics really do tell the story.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, you're taking a look here, and for the Bethune-Cookman side, you've got 6 kills from Jasmine Moore, 6 kills from Jaden Newman, and then 2 kills from 3 other players. So when you're looking at how you're manufacturing your offense, you're trying to make sure that you're balancing the workload among everybody, right? You can't tell one player, hey, you've got to go and get every single kill that we need, because everybody in the gym knows it's going to, and you make her life so much more difficult. So running what we call a balanced offense is a really, really good way to give your hitters opportunities to get those kills. But what we're seeing here is that Jasmine Moore and Jaden Newman, they're at 3 kills a set. It is about what you want it to be if everybody else on the team is doing what they need to do, is doing their job. And we're just not finding that they're getting any help from anywhere else. But there's also a lot of volume, a lot of attempts going to the outside hitters, Jasmine and Jaden, and not a lot going the other way. So it's all kind of mixed together where their struggles with the first contact, their struggles with their passing are forcing them to set their outsides more and more and more, and taking away opportunities from the rest of the hitters to make the outside's job easier and get their own points.
And for the Florida A&M side, I noticed Brooklyn Watts are really impressive on the hitting percentage, up around 370. Who else has stood out to you?
Yeah, I mean, you look at hitting percentages, Aja Jones at 7 kills, 1 error on 11 attempts. She's hitting .545. That hitting percentage is incredible. But for Brooklyn Watts to have 11 kills on 27 attempts, she is, half of the time that she's touching the ball, she's getting a point. And that is almost unthinkable. I mean, that is a very high kill percentage. So Bethune-Cookman really needs to make sure that they're taking a look at Brooklyn Watts and figuring out how they're going to put a stop to that.
If you're confused about what those numbers mean, think about it in terms of baseball, as the first point is off the block and out for Florida A&M. Think about it in terms of baseball hitting percentages. You want to be about the same thing. Everything over 250-ish is about where you want to be.
Absolutely. And you start to see some variance within the positions. So middle hitters should have a really good hitting percentage because they are really only getting set when the ball is perfect. They're getting good scenarios. Outside hitters get all of the junk. Every time that you get a bad pass and the setter just has to throw something up and hope someone takes that swing, that's going to the outside. So the outsides, they get a little bit more grace. If you're hitting around 250, which like Dominique Washington is hitting 250 right now with 8 kills, 3 errors on 20 swings, that's a solid performance for an outside. But as a middle, like Aja Jones for Florida A&M, she's hitting .545. Every 1 out of every 2 times she's touching the ball, she's getting that kill. So it's interesting to watch how it kind of changes on the position as well.
2-2 after the first 4 points as the teams have traded service errors. As we saw Brooklyn Watts send that ball long right after Jasmine Moore did it for the Wildcats. This time it's in play. Icar over the net, off the net. This has got to go from the back row. It does. Outside and into the twine, and Bethune-Cookman takes a 3-2 lead.
And one of the things that Bethune-Cookman is really kind of playing with fire is how tight that they're playing to the net. You saw on the dig that Jaden Newman made up short during that last play. She dug it almost on top of the net. It hit the top of the net, and then Alicia Callender tried to set from there. And so since they're playing so close, they're taking away a lot of opportunities to slow the game down and make things easier.
How about that ridiculous solo block from Nayara Hightower from Wichita Falls, Texas? Just rejected that. And that time it floated down to the back row. 4-3, BCU on top in the second set. Hightower, originally from Flint, Michigan, 3-year varsity letter winner in both volleyball and basketball at Harishi High School in Texas, was district blocker of the year and team captain both junior and senior year. And that one, again, a serve, finds the middle of the court. Talk about the overlap, especially at the high school level, between basketball and volleyball, because there seems, in researching for this game, there seemed to be a fair bit.
Absolutely. What you have kind of found is that, a lot of times players will start to play both because the cross training really transfers. So the jumps that you're putting in basketball transfer to the jumps that you're putting in volleyball, as well as you see actually a very strong similarity with the footwork. When there are two hitters in the front row, you'll see it on the Florida A&M side. When the setter rotates to the front row and there are only two hitters up there, the middle can actually run behind the setter and become a right side hitter on what we call a slide set. And the footwork for that is exactly the same as a basketball player going up for a layup.
That is rejected but out of bounds. And the Wildcats tie the set at 5 as the libero for Florida A&M, Brooke Hudson, rotates back into the game. Two-time libero of the year at Cypress Lake High School and a transfer from Colorado State.
And again, Bethune-Cookman's coming out really hot. They're pushing the pace. They're trying to make sure that they're staying up there with Florida A&M. Now we've got to figure out, what's going to happen as things move forward. Is it that, hopefully it's going to continue to be a strong game, but if the same kind of collapse comes around from the first and second sets, is it because they are making a lot of unforced errors, hitting the ball out of bounds, hitting the ball in the net? Or is it that, maybe Florida A&M really just kind of finds their groove a couple of points in and they start rattling off points? So that'll help the coaching staff to address where those struggles start to come from.
Another service ace for Florida A&M is that one again, just knuckleball down in front of Adriana Marrero, who couldn't handle it. Marrero, one of the international contingent on the floor from Corozal, Puerto Rico, but played her high school ball in Florida at Harmony over in the Orlando area. Tipped over, recovered by Coates. Across it goes, off the block, and out. And there is Alicia Collender. We have not called her name nearly enough today for Bethune-Cookman.
Absolutely, and that's, where we're talking about. That is that the outside hitters for Bethune-Cookman have really kind of shouldered the load, and now we're hoping for the right sides to start to pick some of that up and run with it.
Collender has ties that run deep to this area, played at University High School in Orange City, as that's a little improvisation at the top of the net for Hightower, her second kill of the game, and ties it at 7.
And the best part of that is that Nayara Hightower actually took that ball and played it over to her right. She moved it to a side. A lot of times you'll see players, oh goodness, that's a miscommunication.
And there's a little campfire ace. You were talking about that earlier as Bethune-Cookman takes an 8-7 lead.
But on those overpasses, you'll sometimes see players try to send it straight back over in front of them, but that's where everybody is crashing to. If I can get up and move it to a side and be the first person to move it to a side, I make it almost impossible for someone to get to.
Another block, but Hudson digs it out. Bethune-Cookman now with the play. Hudson again to the net. Ishar long, and BCU takes the points.
So there you actually saw a little bit of trickery. So Ushar, the setter for Florida A&M, jumped as though she was going to hit the ball on the second contact to make Jasmine Moore jump with her to block. And then she set her middle so that there was only one blocker up in front of the middle instead of Jasmine Moore being able to come in and help and add a second pair of hands in front of her.
Nice dig by Marrero. Whistle and a foul, so it'll be, I believe they called it double touch on Bethune-Cookman, so it's 9-8 BCU. Serving for A&M is the reigning player of the year, Dominique Washington. And that one is very long, as Jasmine Moore couldn't keep that down off of a wild setup.
And that looked like she was trying to drive it into that deep corner. You know, that can also be a little bit of a bailout shot, because if I'm going all the way into the cross-court corner, I give myself the longest distance of inside the lines possible. But that one, she just put a little too much on it and ended up sailing it out.
Straight down for Brooklyn Watts. She transferred from Murray State, the native of Maryland, and is Murray State's single-match four-set minimum kills record holder with 34 against Georgia Southern last season.
That is insane. What is that, almost 8 kills a set?
Almost. That one's down the
incredible.
line and in, and BCU continues to keep it close. It's 10-all. Jasmine Moore again with the kill. As we see assistant coach James Goodridge talking to Madison Coates. The libero Marrero to serve. To the back row it goes, Washington, and then finished up the middle. Nice save, but it goes off the ceiling and right back to VCU's side. And that time the home court advantage was against the home team.
And that swing from Aja Jones was that slide approach. That was that layup footwork where she could actually start in the center of the court but swing her way out to the right side, and it starts to get pretty difficult to track from the blocking perspective. So that's a really effective play if you get a hitter that can go up and contact it and control the ball well there.
Collender solo blocked at the net by Watts. Cross court it goes. Washington, single arm save from Coates, pushed over, and another save by Washington on the back row. Whistle and a stoppage, BCU will get the point.
So double contacts when the ball is being set is kind of a contentious topic. You know, a double contact is really intended so that I can't pass the ball once and then hit it again. But it's kind of evolved into this need to be clean as the ball is coming out of my hands when I'm setting. So you'll start to see that the differences between up refs is kind of interesting with what one up ref will consider a double and what another one will. You can have somebody calling it really tight where things need to basically not spin at all when they come out of your hands. Or you can have somebody who likes to make things a little bit more lax and make what you call volleyball plays. So you're just, you know what, if you're going to go be an athlete, I'll let it be a little bit more muffled.
12-11 BCU after the kill by Mecca Freeman. First time we've seen her on the court tonight. Holds the Maid Creek High School in Houston, Texas record for most kills in a game with 36. Blocks in a game with 7 and career kills with 730. And she is going to be on the play again and whiffs on it. And that allows A&M to tie the game at 12.
And that was a timing thing. It looked like Mecca was trying to get in on one of their faster sets, but because Alicia Callender, the setter, was running so far forward, she wasn't able to get it back there as quickly as it needed to, and Mecca was just very, very early.
Uchar, the 2021 setter of the year to serve. It goes off the lattice work beams, and at crazy angle, and Florida A&M gets the point. If you can't see, here at Moore Gymnasium, there is a ceiling, but there's almost a drop ceiling of lattice-worked beams and cool air conditioning ducts underneath that, where if the ball hits that, it's going to go at any angle it darn well pleases.
Absolutely. Sometimes you'll get a favorable bounce, and that's the interesting thing with ceilings and actually with the basketball goals at the end of the court as well, is sometimes there will be plays where you can tell that, you know, the ball was shanked, nobody's getting to it, but then it gets saved by the ceiling, and sometimes that gets a little contentious. But sometimes you also have the ones where, no, I was right there, but once it hit that thing, I was out of luck.
Quick three-point swing for A&M, but that is a service error from Uchar to give the point to BCU. BCU down 14-13 and 2 sets to nil, trying to save this one and extend into a 4th set, a feat that they have only done 4 times in their 12 games this year. From the back row, it's hit short by Washington and rejected by Aaliyah Dallas.
And that's one of the coolest things about Aaliyah Dallas's game. She jumped and wasn't necessarily making a blocking move. She hung in the air and reached for that ball because she wanted to be the one to make that play. Sometimes you'll see blockers go up and they're just kind of there taking up space. Aaliyah really goes and tries to attack the attacker.
Another block at the net by Dallas. That's 2 in a row, and BCU takes a lead, 15-14. Jasmine Moore, the leader in kills and digs for this team to set, or to serve, excuse me. Down it goes, Washington digs it out. That's a tough one for Uchar, and it's unable to be saved by Brooklyn Watson. Watts looked to the up official like, didn't they touch that? But no, it's a BCU point. So, oh no, they gave it to Florida A&M.
Yes, so what happened, Uchar had actually played that ball up, and it was entirely on the Florida A&M side. Aaliyah Dallas reached all the way across the net and played the ball when it was entirely in the opponent's airspace, and so that means that she was actually called over the net. If any part of that ball had crossed the plane and was on top of that antenna, or on top of the tape, excuse me, then Aaliyah would have been able to make that play and it would have been legal.
A game of inches, 15-15. It has been 15-15 in both of the first 2 sets. In the first set, Florida A&M won 9 of the last 10 points to win 25-16. In the second set, they won 10 straight points to win 25-15. And now they lead at 16-15 to the Rattlers, and now 17-15 as a solo block at the net for Isis Williams goes down.
And part of those runs really has to be credited to the server. You know, as you're going back there, you're doing your best to be as aggressive as possible, but also make sure that you're getting this thing in the court, right? Because that's the only way that you can continue to play. And to rattle off 10 serves in a row with no misses, while possible, is very, very difficult to do while you're staying aggressive and keeping the other team out of system.
Jasmine Moore flutters her back row hit too long. And it is 18-15, and Bethune-Cookman will take a timeout. We will as well. Florida A&M driving toward the finish line. They lead 18-15 in the third set. This is Bethune-Cookman Volleyball on the Cat-Eye Network. Stay up to date with everything Bethune-Cookman Athletics by checking out Wildcats on social media. Give the BCU Athletics a like on Facebook and follow the Wildcats on Twitter at BCU Athletics. Also check out our new Instagram page at BCU_Athletics for the latest on BCU Volleyball. Follow at BCU Volleyball on Twitter and Instagram. 18-15 Florida A&M as the Rattlers already lead 2-0 here, and now it is 19-15, a 4-point run before and after the timeout.
And this is where we really focus in on the first touch. You know, we kind of drill it into people in the practice gym, but if you can't get the pass up, then there's no way for your setter to run the offense and for your hitters to be successful. The problem comes when you've got a string of missed passes and then you finally get a good one and everybody's so out of practice that now it takes the hitters a minute to get back into the swing of things.
5-point Florida A&M swing. They lead at 20-15. That is a kill attempt dug out by Hudson. Back row Callender recovers, and Marrero plays it up, and down the line it goes for Jaden Newman, and BCU finally breaks the duck.
And that tip push back into the deep corner is really, really good, especially for an outside hitter over the top of the setter. The setter has a tendency to try to avoid playing that first ball, digging that first ball, because they want to go and touch the second one. So you can kind of manufacture miscommunications between the middle back player who's supposed to go and run it down and the setter who may, in fact, be closer.
Becca Freeman tried to get that block, couldn't steer it inbounds, and it is 21-16. Florida A&M Rattlers racing towards their 4th win of the year and their first conference win in this conference opener between these two Florida rivals, the only two Florida teams in the Southwestern Conference. And that one is hammered off of Washington and down, and VCU has their highest scoring set of the evening. It is 21-17, Florida A&M. And you see Coach Yilmaz talking to his players, just saying, hey, probably calm down. We're in the driver's seat. Just close it out.
That's generally the narrative that you're going to be pumping here. You want to make sure that the players and the athletes remember that, you know, a couple of points doesn't make or break the match. You just got to get back to doing what you've taught, or what you've learned and what you've practiced in the gym. That
was through Hightower's hand. She couldn't make the block, so 3 points away for A&M, 22-17. Morero, cross it goes, cross-court play, blocked out by Watts. Washington has it, thrown right back in her face by Hightower. And I'm telling you, Nyara Hightower may only have 12 blocks on the season coming into the game. She's got a couple tonight, and maybe rising up that ranking at the end of this evening's contest.
Absolutely. And that's a little bit by nature of her playing this session or this set in the middle blocker spot. So she's going and she's putting hands up in front of every single hitter that takes a swing. So she's going to have those opportunities to really be a blocking force for the Wildcats.
On the line and in, that was Watts with the kill. And it is now 23-18. 2 points away for the Rattlers. That one knuckles down in front of Williams, who recovers. Tipped over by Collender, Hudson, Uchar, and saved by Coates after the drop shot. Back in system for A&M. Across it goes, and saved by Collender, but she could not direct it in the direction of her fellow players. And it is match point for Florida A&M. And it is the reigning SWAC Player of the Year, Dominique Washington, a transfer from Georgia Tech, to serve it. Morero, across, tipped at the net, kept alive by Uchar, plays it up, and down it goes for Brooklyn Watts. And the Odenton, Maryland graduate ends the ball game. It is 25-18 in the third set, 25-16 in the second set, 25-15 in the first set. And the Florida A&M Rattlers begin their SWAC title defense with a victory in Daytona Beach this evening, 3-0.
And you know, while it's easy to walk away from this with a bitter taste in your mouth if you're the Wildcats, to be advancing throughout the game, you know, 15, 16, 18, even though they're not close, you can see that they're staying in it. A lot of times you'll watch a team who has a rough first set and they'll just kind of decline from there. But for them to really hang on to things and keep on pushing, keep on trying to get better, shows that, you know, there should be a lot of growth throughout this season. And then like we were saying before, they're a young team, so to be able to take that and move it into next year as well.
Florida A&M will have one more non-conference contest. They're at home against the North Florida, I believe, Falcons. I forgot the team name, my own state. North Florida comes to Al Lawson Center on the 28th, but it is a lot of straight road games for Bethune-Cookman coming up. They go to Alabama to compete in Pool 1 of the SWAC Volleyball Conference slate next. The 30th of this month, they'll play Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Alcorn State, and Southern in those couple of days. Then they've got Southern, Texas Southern, Mississippi Valley State, Jackson State, at Florida A&M, at Prairie View, at Arkansas State, at Grambling State, before finally coming home to close the season with 4 straight home games against Alabama State, Alabama A&M, Mississippi Valley State, and Jackson State. We will cover those, the games that are here at Moore Gymnasium on the Cat Eye Network. The next one coming up on the 4th of November. That is a Friday evening at 6 p.m., just like this one. So, final thoughts from a game that was on the score sheet one-sided, but if you watch the contest throughout, Bethune-Cookman has a lot to be proud of here.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think we saw them, really push through some adversity. I think that seeing what they do moving into this away stretch that they're going into is going to be really, really telling. When you're in non-conference play, and especially never playing at home, there's just a lot of different factors. You're traveling, you're playing teams you've never seen before. It's the beginning of the season, so you're trying to put everything together, and it's, not usually indicative of what is coming next. And then to come home, have your first home game against the reigning conference champions, it was a heck of a start to conference. But to see them get into now, okay, yes, they're not going to be at home. They're going to be on a road stretch, and that will be a little bit of adversity. But to see them kind of go, okay, can we fall into ourselves, fall into our system, make sure that we can come together as a team and really progress from this point? I think it'll be exciting to see what they do over this next stretch of away matches.
The wait goes on for Brittany Williams. She's still 6 wins away from matching the program's all-time mark for wins as the head coach. Vanessa Cogswell is who she is chasing. She will have to wait until later on in the season to potentially gain that mark. That'll do it for us here at Moore Gymnasium. For producer Darian McCaskill and my co-host Taylor Pritchett, my name is Michael Trevillo. Thank you so much for watching. Have a very pleasant good evening.